Hi, Alice. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, Quang. What a pleasure to be here today. My name is Alice. I'm currently the account manager for Meta based in Singapore. I have been in Singapore for about 2 years. Prior to that, I was in Ho Chi Minh City for about 6 years. I moved to Ho Chi Minh City after my graduation in the US. I was there for about 4 years, 3 years of universities and in Pennsylvania and 1 year of high school in California. And before that, I was born and raised in Hanoi. So I have been in many different countries in my life, different places, different roles. And yeah, very excited to be here today and, share with you and also OV members on some of the career stories I have in the past, about 10 years.
Thank you so much, Alice. I love how you reverse chronologically told your story. So let's start in the very beginning from Hanoi to US and then to Singapore. Seems to be a very interesting journey. Tell us a bit about your early life in Hanoi and your upbringing and how it sort of shaped who you are today and how you then manage life in the US.
Yeah, so again, as I share, I was born and raised in Hanoi, in the center of the city. I think like Hanoi is a very interesting place because it's like a very big city, but then it also has a very the traditional aspect to it, and I think that's really helped to shape me to who I am today. And talking about my early life, and then I want to mention about my grandfather because I lived with my grandparents majority of my childhood. My parents was like too busy to work and they was like building their own factory that really didn't have the time to, spend it with me. So I was living with my grandparents and actually my grandfather is the biggest, influence for my early childhood and also shaped me to who I am today. So since I was a very young kid, my grandfather always like told me that I have to go abroad. He always tell me that I have to go abroad in order to be successful. I think because like he's a very good thầy tử vi, which is the horoscope like master. So he could, kind of read my horoscope and he can see that, for my life, like I would be very successful if I move overseas or study overseas. So that's why he kind of like plant that seed into my mind from a very, very young age. And that's why I, like wanted to study abroad in the US. And yeah, I think he passed away about like 13 years ago, about like right before I moved to the US to study. So it's a little bit unfortunate that he wasn't being able to be around and see how I lived, the global citizen life that he always wanted for me. But yeah, I think that's really helpful for me to shape into who I am today.
Lovely. And then when you arrived in the US, how did you navigate life as a Vietnamese who came over?
Wow. It was very, very tough, man. Because at the beginning, I couldn't speak English quite well. I remember that it was my first time flying and I flew
How
all
old were
the
you? Sorry.
way. I was 17.
Okay.
I was
Wow.
17
Okay.
back then, and it was my first time flying, and it was, the very long flight. I remember I was like going from Hanoi to Taipei, and then go to San Francisco, and then after that, going to a small like town in California called Stockton. My English was very bad like back then because I didn't take it very seriously, and I remember I was like on the plane, and I was cold, but I couldn't ask for a blanket because I don't know what's the word for blanket. So it was just like cold like for the entire very long flight. And then when I came to the US, it was a big shock for me because I didn't learn a lot about the US like culturally before I came. I just thought that, US is a very cool country. It's like very far away. I think I can get a very good like, education there, but I didn't really learn a lot like culturally. So I was like, I arrived to a city called Stockton, not like San Francisco or LA or the, California that a lot of people imagine. But it's a kind of like a small town. And I feel like very big cultural shock back then. When it was like kind of like suburb area. When it was like looking outside, there was no car passing by for about like 10 minutes. And imagine me, like, was born and raised in, Hanoi, where, the streets are very busy, like a lot of like motorbike, like going around.
Mm.
I was like, oh my God, I didn't know what I got myself into. I was very homesick for the first like 2 months. And I think also living with a host family back then was also very challenging because as they wanted me to adapt into, the US culture, they didn't want me to call my parents because they didn't want
Mm.
me to spend too much time, like, longing, for Vietnam and also just want me to immerse into this culture. So I think the first 2 months was very, very difficult. But I think after that, I got, along with everyone just fine. And I essentially moved to Bay Area to finish my high school there. So yeah, I think it was just the beginning was just very, very difficult.
And so how did you think the difficulty sort of shaped you then later on? What did you learn or take away from that experience?
I think what I took away from that experience, I think that's definitely, the first challenge that I encountered in my life, because my early childhood is quite, like happy little kid, like didn't have a lot of problems, didn't have a lot of things like to worry about. I think back then I would just need to think about my goal. What is my goal? Why I want to be here? And I think that helped me to navigate through the challenging, of course, like with the help of other people as well. I think like reaching out for help is definitely the most important thing that I learned back then. Because at that time, I kind of, my host parents kind of like mistreated me a little bit. They didn't really value the education that I wanted to pursue. They hosted me mainly for financial reasons.
Okay.
That's a very interesting story to to share. But yeah, so that's why I had to reach out to the organization that brought me into the US and try to find a different host parent. And my second host parent is amazing. They're very supportive of me, and even we still keep in touch even until now. And they are also one of the people that build the foundation for my educations and also my life in the US as well. So very thankful for that. But yeah, definitely first reach out for help. Always keep the goals in mind. Just gotta grind through this.
And then while you were in college or while you were in school there, how did you plan your next steps and how did you go about taking those next steps?
Yeah, I think when I was in school in California, I really wanted to go to college in the US. I think that is my main goal at the beginning. As I shared with you, my host parent at that time is very helpful. They are in the education space. They are also in the board of school as well. So they were very helpful in helping me to achieve the education that I wanted. That's why I applied to university in Pennsylvania. And I remember back then, like doing the college applications, like a lot of like kids, like especially in Bay Area, they wanted to get into, like Stanford, they wanted to get into like Berkeley, they wanted to get into like UCLA, like all the very big name out there. But remember, when I came to the US, I didn't even know the blanket word, like, so that's why it's very difficult for me to like blend in with all the kids like in Bay Area who have been like prepping for their college application for their entire life. So it was just okay, like I know where I am, so I'm just apply to some of the college that I feel like I have the highest chance and get the best out of that opportunities. And I applied to a university in Pennsylvania. And like a lot of kids like in the US, before they make their decisions, they would go on college tour, like to see like what is the schools like, and do they want to spend the next like 4 years there. I couldn't afford to do that because it was like flying like across the country, and I didn't have my parents or my family member with me back then, so I was just making a very blind kind of decisions, like okay, like this is a college that looks cool or closer to some of the place that I want to like to go and see. So I just made the decision to go to Pennsylvania. Ask me why I made that decision, I really don't know. I think it was just a leap of faith. I feel like okay, this is good.
And how was your experience then in Pennsylvania? And what was next then?
I think like it's very definitely very different compared to California. California is also still like a very big state and a lot of things are going on over there. But I think I was living in a very small college town in Pennsylvania. There wasn't a lot of things there. I think there was only one small movie theaters. There are two grocery stores. I think like a few restaurants. I think there's one pub that the entire school goes there during the summer when all the college students came back to their families. The town is like ghost empty, like it's very empty, very different compared to where I was born, Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, Singapore. Like it's very, very different. I remember my friend and I, we had to bring our suitcase to go to a farmer market to get our grocery for the week. There's no cab, no taxi. I think there's only a couple of bus like going to NYC, going to Philadelphia, and yeah. But I think the town there is like basically we walk everywhere. Sometimes there was one time that we was like carrying our luggage of of the groceries, and we just like carrying it back home, and some of the people going by was just like, hi, like, do you want to like get on the car, like we can just give you a ride back to your apartment. So like, okay, that's very nice, that's very sweet of you. And I was like asking around all my friends who have cars that can drive me to groceries and drive me to some of the places that I need to go to because I can't drive. I think that's also another mistake of not preparing for the US. Yeah, so I think that's very interesting. But I think that's also a very good place to connect with a lot of people, because I think like when we live in a very small space and not a lot of like distraction, it's very easy to build a connection with the people around it. And actually I made very good friends with like my college what is it called,
Mates.
yes.
And what came after college then, Alice?
Yeah, I think what came after college is that right after my graduation, I came back to Vietnam. I think this is raised some of the very interesting question, because a lot of people ask me like why I didn't want to stay in the US. And even my mom was always like, wanted me to stay in the US and continue my career there. But I think
And your grandfather wanted it for you too, huh?
That's right, that's right. But I think back then, it was just right after the graduation, I moved back to Vietnam. I didn't even bother to look for a job like in America, because I think me being a Vietnamese with my English is my second language, and also with my college degree is not like coming from like top schools or anything. I think that my chance of staying in the US and building my career in the US is very slim. I thought that I had a whole bunch of different like disadvantages compared to the local, compared to a lot of very amazing people like in the US, and also the opportunities in the US is definitely much like less compared to the demand of people applying there. So, but then back then about more than 10 years ago, if I came back to Vietnam, I would have a lot of like different advantages. I think back then there wasn't a lot of like international students, like du học sinh, people who study abroad, and also the education in Vietnam wasn't as good as right now. So the level of English that a lot of people can acquire like back then was like on average not as good as right now. So I thought that when I came back to Vietnam, I would have a lot of advantages, like being an international student with an international mindset, with a fluent English. Then I would rather to be in that place where I have a lot more advantages rather than trying in the US and have so many like disadvantages. That's why I came back to Vietnam. And I think also like back then I didn't know what I want to do. I was studying business management and also accounting like in school, which very general. When I came back to Vietnam, I just applied for different internship, and even the way that I choose my internship is also very funny. Whoever called me first, I'm gonna say yes. That's it. I don't have any strategy like, okay, I want to get into consulting, I want to get into real estate, I want to get into marketing. No, whoever called me first, okay, I'll say yes to that.
And then what happened then when you returned to Vietnam? Who called you first?
Oh, so the company called me first is a human resource company, kind of a headhunter. company is a Japanese company. So it's a very, very interesting culture to be in for a college graduate from the US, to enter the Japanese culture. But I think that is the place that I also learned a lot. I think that's when I first exposed to sales. Before that, I was studying accounting. The reason why I was studying accounting is because I didn't want to deal with people. I felt like people are so like unpredictable and very difficult to manage. So that's why I was like, okay, accounting sounds like, something in my forte because number can be wrong. Like 1+1 = 2, like no question asked, like no argument to that. So I was kind of very afraid of, working with people. But then that's when I was like interning in that company, and it was like in the sales team. They actually have a very big sales team, and sales team is like telesale. So the most scary, type of sales that, a person can do, which is telesale, right? You basically have to do a lot of cold calling, just to pick up your phone and, talk to strangers, like you pitch and you'll just get, the hang up immediately after maybe like 5 seconds of, hey, my name is Alice. And yeah, I think that's how I started my career. But I think that's taught me a lot. That taught me a lot in terms of, how to deal with like people, how to work with people, because essentially we would need to work with people a lot, like regardless of what field you are in or regardless of what role you are in, you would need to work with, people. So I think that's helped me a lot to build the confidence, around people and the soft skill to work and sales to people, and also to overcome rejections as well. Because cold calling, rejection is the natural part of it, and I'm very thankful for the time that I was there. Also, to learn about the Japanese way of working, like always on time. Like there's a lot of different nuances to that as well, and also different ethics, like work ethics that the Japanese really embrace, that I think is very like valuable to my careers like later on.
It's very interesting that you sort of came from a more trying to be accounting, more avoiding people, into directly sales. How difficult was that for you, and what was your starting point? Were you more on the introvert side, or did it feel more natural to you?
It was very, very challenging for me. And I think if I need to break down why it was so challenging, then I think the first one is facing a lot of rejections. Growing up, I didn't face a lot of rejections. I think that's why I said, I had a kind of like very easy childhood. I asked for a lot of things and I typically got what I want. So being in sales and getting that many rejections and try not to take it personally, I think that was very, very challenging. But I'm so glad that I got to learn that very early on in my career. Because as I said, step outside of, the college and enter my career, and I'm sure you will know that we will face a lot of rejections in life. And it's not because they are rejecting us, but it's just maybe not the right time, not the right, resource, or just we are asking from the wrong people. And so that's why, facing that rejection is the part that very challenging, but I'm so glad that I have done that. I think second of all is also the uncertainty of the sales nature. Like, for accounting or for some other work, maybe like whatever we put in there, we're going to get out the result, equally to the effort that we put in. But for sales, it's very different. Like we put in the work, but there's still a lot of different factors that we can't really control in order to get the sales done. So being able to face the uncertainty is also something that I learned. And I think also the last part of that is the pressure of the sales culture. I think the telesales culture is like constantly on a daily basis. I have to make like 40 phone calls every single day, and also, chasing after a target in sales. I think that was a lot of pressure as well. But I think overall, I'm so glad for that experience, and especially like very early on in the career.
Do you think Vietnamese culture or Vietnamese upbringing is, hindering you to develop those skills, and sort of makes it even harder for someone to later on develop those sales and communication and, rejection taking skills?
Yeah, I think being a Vietnamese is definitely one of the things that I feel like it hindered me. Or I don't think like being in Vietnamese in particular, but I think like being in, the traditional environment growing up, like, in Hanoi, where people really value, the opinions of other peoples, and also, just kind of value the society more than, our own individual compared to the US or Western culture. So I think that,
Mhm.
like that definitely hinder my potential of being in sales or, working with, people. I think it was also because I was very young back then. I was about like, like 20 years old. And I think also because of my childhood, I didn't have to deal with a lot of difficulties or challenges. That's
Mm.
why those years are kind of like the first time that I encounter those kind of like problems.
And then after the role for the Japanese company, what came next for you?
I think that was in Hanoi, and then I relocated to Ho Chi Minh City to
Mm.
join one of the also like big tech company, which is Expedia. And I think that's also one of the pivotal moments for me as well, to be in Ho Chi Minh City and also to join like a US company. And it has really unlocked a lot of my strengths and my growth as well. First of all, talking about Ho Chi Minh City, I just feel that it's fit into my characteristics and also my goals a lot better compared to Hanoi. I still love Hanoi, by the way. Like I still call myself a Hanoian, but I mean, career-wise, I just think that like Ho Chi Minh City is a much better choice. Things are moving at a very fast pace there. And at Expedia, I was able to meet a lot of amazing people that even now they're still, my friends, like my best friends, like I'm sure for life, not only just colleagues. Yeah, so I think like that's really helpful.
Yeah, and how was your experience then, and what came next?
My experience at Expedia is amazing. Like, there's nothing I could complain about. My experience at Expedia. I remember vividly when I decided to quit Expedia. I was like booking a meeting with my senior director, who's actually like offered me the role. Was really helping me for 3 years that I was there, and even he's still my coach and mentor now. And I
Mm.
remember like having a meeting with him, and I was just like, "Hey, I just need to share that resigning from my current position." And then after I finished that sentence, my tears was like pouring out. I was crying like crazy. And he was like, okay, okay, calm down, calm down, calm down. And the first thing that he asked me, which I still like really remember like vividly because I feel like so careful, is that, okay, what is your next step? Like, do you have any next step yet? Like, what do you plan to do like after this? And he didn't
Mm.
ask me like, okay, why you quit? Like, what's happened? And whole bunch of things. Like, he didn't care about that. He was like really genuinely care about me. And I think that's something that I really value in my experience at Expedia, which is having a lot of amazing mentors and amazing colleagues who help me to shape me into who I am today, who help me to develop the right mindset, the learning mindset, asking the right questions, and yeah, I think just amazing in general to help me to feel the foundation for personal development and career growth to help me to achieve to who I am today.
And what made you quit?
I think what made me quit is because I feel like my learning curve was like hitting toward the end. It has been like 3 years there. I think like also
Mm.
like Expedia in Vietnam there's only one function, which is the market management, which is basically like account management and more the client facing role. There was a
Mm.
lot of different roles in Expedia, but like in Expedia in Vietnam, there was only that function. So I think that's why I need to leave and get outside of my comfort zone because like, oh my God, that was a very comfort zone for me. I was like, but I need to make a very difficult decision to step outside of that and grow myself even more.
And did you have a next step then?
I think definitely next step is very different compared to Expedia. Next step is a startup. also in the hospitality and tech industry. But I was the only one based in Vietnam and to develop the market. And if my role at Expedia was more the sales, but like farmer role, then the next role is a lot more the hunter role for sales. Back again, a lot of cold calling, a lot of cold emailing, a lot of reaching out to people. Even though like at that time I felt a lot more comfortable with doing that, but then that's also another challenge for me, which is working with just myself, working from home. I also feeling quite lonely at that time, and then I joined that company beginning of 2020. And you know what happened at the beginning of 2020? COVID. And what is the worst industry to be in back then? Hospitality. Yes, I was there by myself alone. And there's also a different challenge that I faced because I think 4 months into the company, there was one day that I woke up and my colleagues were just texting me and saying, "Hey, you know what?" I was like, "What?" Like, yesterday they just fired about like 80 people. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know like that was happening. And I think when I got into Slack, there was like the entire list of, 80 people that were kind of like furloughed or let go like back then. And luckily I wasn't, in that list. And I was thinking back about why they kept me, even though I was just in the role for about like 4 months back then. And I feel like, one of my advantage is I'm the only person who can speak Vietnamese in the company. And they have Vietnamese clients. Like, if there's people, like 3 Chinese speaking people, right, they can let 2 others Chinese speaking people go and keep one. Then, that one can still talk to Chinese clients and, partners and things like that. But I'm the only one who can speak Vietnamese. So I think that is my advantage back then.
And then came Meta, right?
Yeah, I think like also how I transitioned into Meta is also back then it was COVID. Also in the hospitality industry, everything was very quiet. Definitely, I was very lucky to still like, have my job at that time, but honestly, it wasn't very enjoyable. I got too many rejections in one day. Like, this is not the right time. We are cutting costs. Our hotels are not opened. Like, we are shutting down. We are cutting, people. So there's a lot of, like challenges, like working. I remember every single day when I woke up, I felt like, oh my God, another day. I have to make the calls, but I already know, the calls not gonna, lead to any result. So it's like, I can't live my life like this. I need to find some other things that I'm very passionate about and some of the things that I want to do, on the side, in order to keep, my insanity, especially I was like alone, like no colleagues around in Ho Chi Minh cities. Luckily I was living with my family, so that helped. But yeah, that's when I started my YouTube channel. That's when I started to do content about, skincare and, putting myself out there. Yeah, I think I remember my first video was very, very bad, but I think I love doing that. Every single day when I come to, the co-working space, we used to have the co-working space there. I just brought my camera with me, also my microphone with me, and just, after work about like 5, okay, I will, pull out my camera and, film another videos. I think that helped to, keep me going, during that time. And it was like consistently for about like 2 years, I was pushing out videos every single week, like really like fine tune my videos. I learned how to edit, how to set up cameras, how to, like do different things with like content creations. And yeah, I love it so much to the point that, I grew my YouTube channel to like getting, more affiliate marketings, also getting more of the sponsorship, like working with different agency, working with different brand deals. So it was like very amazing to me. That really like helped to, like fuel my passions and, bring me a lot of joy in my life like back then. And I think that's also how, and also what helped me to got into Meta as well. Because when I was applying to Meta, to be honest, I was just applying for fun. At that time, I had a hobby of going for job interviews. I don't know, but I had a hobby because I feel like this is a very great way to, first of all, to learn about different roles and learn about different company. I think that through all of the like job interviewing process, it's a very great opportunity for me to learn about that company as well. Also to learn about myself because, going through the interview, answering like many questions on, my motivation, what I want in my life, and also the technique of selling myself. I think that, like a lot of people when they think about job interviewing, they just feel like, oh my god, this is something very painful. Actually, it brought me a lot of joy back then. So I was just applying for different company, even though I didn't really have the intention to go into that company, because I would just enjoy my remote job so much at that time. It gave me the time and flexibility to build my YouTube channel as well. So also when my friend shared with me the job posting for Meta, I was just like literally I was texting her like, oh, not too interested, but well, give it a try to see what is the interviewing process of a big tech company would be like. So I just applied to Meta. Of course, I gave all my best because, being, an overachiever myself, like even if I don't have the intention of actually joining them, I just want to give my best try. And I remember they was asking me like, would you be open to relocate to Singapore? I'm like, yeah, I'm open to relocation. But even though deep down inside, I really didn't want to because I just bought a house in Ho Chi Minh City. I think like I would settle in Ho Chi Minh City. Didn't really want to relocate at all. But then I think like going through that interviewing process, I was able to be like inspired by a lot of amazing people. Especially I'm coming from a place where I was just like working, by myself, like just myself being in Vietnam and imagining myself working alongside a lot of like, amazing people at Meta. I was like, oh wow, this is a very great opportunities for me. I think also one of the things that helped me to got into Meta was also because my experience with video editing and also with my building my YouTube channel as well. Because again, if you can tell from my career story, I didn't have any background in marketing or social media whatsoever. I didn't even know like how Meta like monetized, like I didn't really think about it. I didn't know that. But I think definitely the experience of building the YouTube channel help to first of all like prove that I have the passion for social medias and content creation. I think also second of all exposed me to a lot of skill set needed for that space as well, and combining with my skills in account management, business development. Then I got the job offer from Meta as an account manager, and that's why I joined Meta and relocated to Singapore. And yeah, that's why I'm here today.
Tell us a bit about when you received the offer and what you were thinking at that time.
I think like
How did it feel for you?
I think like I already made the decision that I would join if they offer me. Even before the offer came in. But I think like what changed my perspective is throughout the interviewing process, because the interviewing process we had to have a loop interviewing with different people at Meta, and every single person's like so nice, so talented, and I mean like I could imagine myself like working alongside them. That would be so amazing. And actually, that's true. Like when I joined Meta, I think all the people are amazing. I love working with them every single day. They inspire me a lot. They challenge me a lot, but for the better. And every single day, I still have some sort of like imposter syndrome of like, oh my God, like they're so amazing. And I'm here like alongside with them. Like, what did I do to deserve this? And I think that's the beauty of it. That's why that changed my mind about from like not relocating to Singapore to, okay, yes, I'm definitely gonna go to Singapore and join Meta. And remember, I was definitely very happy. I couldn't imagine this, especially when I was just thinking, oh, I'm just applying for fun. Like, and I think also because I think I couldn't get in because I don't have any background in marketing or social media at all.
I think one thing a lot of listeners would be curious about is what would be your advice or tips for people who want to break into big tech and interview for a company like Meta?
I think like one of the advice I would give is prepare for the interview that you want to go into about 2-3 years ahead of time. Like a lot of people just think that, I'm just gonna, apply, and when people call for the interview, then I'm not gonna prepare for that interview. No, I think like, it doesn't work that way because I think thinking back about my stories, I started my YouTube channel back in 2020, and 2022 is the time that I applied for Meta. I think opportunities will present itself when you are already prepared. It's not like you have to prepare for the opportunities, but you have to like think like and strategize before that. Like let's say if you want to get into Meta, what kind of role that you want to get into Meta? Let's say product management, account management, what role and what are some of the skills that they require and how you're gonna prepare for that that skill set 2-3 years ahead of time, because 2-3 years is kind of like the enough time for you to build up that skill set, right? And I think a lot nowadays, I think employers don't like just only value the college degree, but I think that like it's a lot of like self-learning and how you develop yourself, how you build up that skill set, like to be ready for that position.
Yeah, I love that. And what were some of your personal lessons you've learned since joining Meta?
I think personal lessons. There's a lot of personal lessons that I learned in Meta. I think things moving so fast at Meta. Very different compared to my previous role at the startup that I shared about previously. I think that like when I joined Meta, I didn't have time for my YouTube channel anymore. That I stopped like doing YouTube, even though I really wanted to do. But after a while, I'm able to figure out my schedule and plan the time to build my Instagram account instead. Well, I mean, because now I'm a Meta employee, that would be that would make sense for me to build up my Instagram account rather than like building my YouTube channel, right? But I mean, I still love YouTube. Definitely, one day I will come back to YouTube. But I think another personal lesson that I learned is ruthlessly prioritize, because there's so many things like going on constantly at Meta. There's so many different like exciting projects. So I think like in being able to evaluate what project or what things that you want to work on that gonna bring you the most impact in the long term and ruthlessly prioritize those projects is something very important that I learned not only from Meta, for my job at Meta, but also for my personal life as well. I also have like so many hobbies that I want to do. I want to do my YouTube channel. I want to build my Instagram account. Currently leading, the OV in Singapore, like preparing like meetups for everyone. I also love playing sport. I love like pickleballs at the moment. I'm addicted. I go to gyms every single day. I love painting. I love so many things. How I'm gonna prioritize those activities in my daily life as well. So I think that's something I learned a lot at Meta, that not only for my professional career, but also for my personal life as well.
Yeah, and I guess you were forced because a big tech life or big tech career also takes a lot of time, and then you still have a lot of interest. I think it's the same for me. So how do you actually go about prioritizing and structuring your day to day? Do you
I
have a
think I
system or anything?
yeah, I think I have a system, and my system is kind of like how I manage my energy. I think we like on a daily basis we have so many different type of activities, right? Some of the activities gonna give us the energy. Some of the activities gonna drain our energy. So I think before that it was about all about like time management, like okay, like what I'm gonna do in that block of time. But I think more nowadays I just think about energy, like energy draining or energy boosting activities. So let's say in the morning, I created like my morning routine to make sure that I have, the most energy and work on, my passion projects before I come to work. It's not like, my work is not my passion, but I mean, working on my, let's say, Instagram account or working on, the OV stuff, like to create the, communities for people to have meaningful connection is something that also like spark a lot of joy for myself as well. So doing all kind of that, like in the morning, gonna give me a lot of like energy to go about my days. I think, and after that, I came to the office, like working, like from 9 to about like 5, and then 5 I just feel like okay, my energy is very draining at the moment, so I would just hit the gym, like get a lot of like exercises. And after that, I feel like, okay, then I'm good. I have more energy now. I can go back to do some other stuff, either like for, Meta or for my personal project as well. So I think that's the frameworks that working for me at the moment. I feel like, time blocking doesn't work for me. I mean, like, of course, I do time block for like some important stuff, but I wouldn't block my calendar like completely, full from 6 in the morning all the way to about like 10 at night. I don't know. It doesn't work for me. Does it work for you?
Yes, but I need to be also intentional how I block. So there are even blocks for taking breaks. There are even blocks for, resting, even blocks for doing nothing, even blocks for spending time with friends. So I live by my calendar, but
Ooh.
I try to keep it flexible as well. And I try to make it, the blocks big so that I know in life, a lot of things take more time than we think. Sometimes things take shorter than we think, but I always account for that. And over time, I get more experience in how I build the blocks. But I would sort of like to have some structure in it, but it's rare that I, stick to it throughout the day. So it's just for mental structure. In the end, it's going to be different anyways.
I think that everyone have their own like different approach when it comes to life. But I think like just try different stuff, right? Like after a while, you will figure out what works for you.
Yes, yes. Okay, thanks for that, sharing that, Alice. What's next for you? Any upcoming projects or goals that you're excited about?
Wow. As I have many hobbies, I also have many goals. I think I still struggling with, ruthlessly prioritizing my goals. But I think at the moment, I just really want to double down on what I'm focusing on, which is, growing my Instagram account, spreading more like positive messages to the world, and also a lot of content relating to career development, personal development, wellness in general. I think wellness is something that I'm very passionate about because often people think that, as they just guide like through their 20s and moving into their 30s, that they will be able to be, very successful in life. But being successful in life is not about just, your career, right? Because your career is just only one aspect of your life. You have so many things like going on as well. Your friends, your family, your mental health, your physical health, and, so many things ongoing. And actually, if you're able to be very healthy with your mental health, physical health, relationship, that will help your career as well. But then a lot of people often overlook, those aspects. So I think like wellness is something that I'm very passionate about. I want to also, share more, tools and resources for people to embark on their wellness journey to build the foundation for their success and, mental well-being, and there's a lot of like self-care and self-love in general. So that's something that, I'm focusing on at the moment, besides, of course, being an account manager at Meta, and also, for the OV activities and, meetup in Singapore as well.
And then quick plug for your content in Insta. What sort of your focus and what are the topics you cover and are passionate about?
The topics that I'm passionate about are about, personal developments and also wellness and, self-care and self-love. And I think it's not about, I think often people think that when they create content, it's for, the audience to see. But I think like creating content creation for me is also for myself as well. Like I think it's kind of like a diary for me to record what I have learned, and also how I distilled all the informations that I learned, on a daily basis. Because information and resources and tools are, out there. Like there's a lot of your different like wellness, like self-care and, self-help kind of books and tools and resources, right? But I think I also want to use my social media channels as a way for me to record all of that, and also kind of like give my thought, reflections, and also my experience into the content that I share in my Instagram as well.
I love that. How can our members or people connect with you or follow your work?
Wow. Yeah, how people find me? I'm available on many different platforms. So Instagram, if you want to, take a look at the content that I share on also my daily life, then is Alice here. That's on Instagram. I'm also available on LinkedIn as well. If people want to connect with me, my handle is Alice Nguyen 2712, and I'm also available on like OV Fellow. I actually like blogs, sometime on a weekly basis to go and connect with people on the Slack channels. Amazing people. Oh my God, like when I go into there, to be honest, sometimes I feel like the imposter syndrome as well. And like, I'm reading through all the introduction of all the OV fellows. And I'm like, oh my God, this is, these people are amazing. Like, what did I do to, deserve to be here? So that like people can also find me in that as well. Or if you happen to be in Singapore, come to OV Singapore meetup. So I'm the host for OV Singapore meetup. So you can always find me there as well in person. I love in-person interaction. So yeah, come find me.
Yes, plus one to that, OV Singapore meetups are one of the best in the world, I would say. And Singapore chapter is one of the best run chapters in the world, thanks to Alice. And yeah, thank you for
so
today,
kind.
and thank you so much for thank you so much for sharing. And I see you in the Singapore meetups and in Slack. Thank you so much.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Quang, for giving me the chance to share my stories with of the OV listeners.
That's it for today. If you enjoyed this, you will love the OV community. Learn more at overseasvietnamese.com.